Hello and welcome to SoVT Book Talk. I'm your host, Caren McVicker, and I am joined today by Paige Vignola, who's the Assistant Director of the Manchester Community Library. Hi, Paige.
Hi.
It's so fun having you back to help me host in season 2.
It's been fun being here.
Well, and this week we made a special ask because I'm so curious about how you became an Assistant Director at the library that, just so you know, I asked Paige if she would not only co-host, but also be our guest this week. And I was saying it's a little like asking somebody to be the host and the musical guest on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I'm not funny enough for Saturday Night Live, but yeah.
But we're so excited to talk to you today and hear about your journey, how you ended up in Manchester, how you ended up as the Assistant Director of the Manchester Community Library. But I kind of wanted to start a little further back because I'm curious if you were one of those kids who used to hang out at the library when you were little.
So my mother used to bribe me to go to the library because the books that I really wanted to read, she wouldn't buy for the house, she would buy for the library, and then we'd get like our little dedication plaques in the books that were, so if I wanted to read the book that I wanted to read, I had to go to the library to go check it out. So yeah, no, I was definitely, we'll say it, acclimatized early on that you go to the library if you want to find something to read.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
So, you know, fast forward, you're thinking about schooling, what you want to study. Did you actually know you wanted to study library sciences? Like, has this been your goal your whole life?
Oh, no, absolutely not. So my goal my whole life has been to read as much as possible. I'll put it that way. No, I was the kid who was under the blankets with the flashlight. I'm pretty sure that nobody knew that I was up well past my bedtime. No, when I was an undergraduate, I studied literature and history because those are my two obsessions, both. And I like the interplay between literature and history, like social context for why something was written or how it gets received. So that's, and then actually as an undergraduate, I was working on an education degree. And I did go that route for a while. I was a classroom teacher for a while. I was with elementary school, actually, to start off with, and that was definitely not me.
Okay.
And then when I went to grad school, I ended up being a TA for various different history classes and literature classes, and I really enjoyed that. So that's the route that I went for a while. Mm-hmm. My background is actually in medieval history.
Wow.
So not library science in the slightest.
Okay.
Unless you consider Umberto Eco kind of like, you know, library science.
So
that was a joke, SNL style.
Got it. That was funny. That's good. So medieval history, you know, it's sort of one of those degrees. I'm sure parents are like, you know, and what do you do with a degree in medieval history? Were you ever able to do anything with it?
Do you want fries with that?
See, you are funny.
Yeah, so actually, I have a couple of master's degrees. My first one was in Old and Middle English literature, which again is also super useful.
Very.
And then also in medieval history. No, I mean, like, what do I do with that? I was teaching literature and history. That's what I was doing with that. And I consider myself maybe a study of human nature. See, I always think that history is taught wrong, predominantly, because history is not about names and dates and places, and it is about people. It's always about people. Why do people do the things that they do? Usually because they're interested in either pleasing somebody or, how do I say it politely, attacking somebody, right? So, I mean, it's always interpersonal conflicts. And so that's what really kind of drew me into history and literature, which is why I like the interplay between the two. And so that's the route that I went for a while. When I had my daughter, I ended up going back and teaching high school. So left colleges, and then I went into teaching high school, which was fabulous. I joked for a really long time that it was I was doing a little bit of research or reconnaissance work because, you know, I had a small child. I'm eventually going to have a teenager. I kind of need to know how they function.
Excellent.
So I spent a good number of years teaching high school, again, literature, predominantly literature and history. Absolutely adored it. And then, actually, I was down in Florida, which was not my favorite place to be. And so when I was able to get out, I ended up coming up to Vermont, which is a whole other kind of bizarre story in and of itself. And I was actually teaching down in Bennington for about a year and a half before I found the job up at the library. And I'm like, you know what, this is where I want to be.
And so how long have you been at Manchester Community Library?
It's actually, this past week was my 3rd year.
Wow.
Yeah, 3rd anniversary.
Congratulations.
Well,
Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
And what has surprised you the most about your role at the Manchester Community Library? Like, what's been the biggest, because, this is change. You're coming from teaching, coming into more, running an organization, running a nonprofit. There's a lot more events. Like, what has kind of been the biggest surprise for you in taking on that role?
How much I enjoy peopling, I guess.
Okay.
I'm an introvert by nature. I know nobody ever believes me when I say that because I'm really good at putting on the front of being
hosting
extroverted.
a show.
Yeah, exactly. But I am not a kind of person who usually really enjoys interacting with large numbers of people at all. It's sort of, get home and close the door and don't answer the phone and don't answer text messages and all the rest of that. But I really do enjoy talking to people when they come into the library. Sometimes they're only really, brief interactions, and sometimes they're much longer, prolonged interactions over the course of, 3 years. But it's been really fun getting to know the cast of characters, I guess. Maybe that's the way that I'm looking at it. It's almost like a sitcom, although sitcom makes it a little bit dismissive. But it's, there are characters who
Definitely.
you get to know and you get to recognize, and it's kind of fun getting to know them.
And is there like a favorite aspect to your job that you have? Is there one thing you're like, I'm so happy I get to do?
Yes, absolutely. It's when I get to work with teenagers.
Okay.
Because that's really what I love. Again, I loved being in the classroom. I didn't love everything about the administrative side of being in a school, but I loved being in the classroom. And so because I love being around teenagers and listening to them and the way that they think and, what is important and what is not important. And so whenever I get to work with other schools, because I love having school groups come in, and when I get to work with, the teens who come in to volunteer, that's definitely my favorite part.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think you're a rare breed. Not everybody loves working with teenagers, so it sounds like you've managed to put yourself in the right position to do what you love.
And they all want to be there when they come in the door, which is great too, because usually when you're in a classroom, like they don't all want to be there.
So the library is more attractive.
It's a little more attractive. For the most part, they're coming in voluntarily. So yeah.
And I know that the Manchester Community Library it's so much more than a library. It's a community center. It's a gathering place. And that they have a wonderful vision for the future. Like, is there anything that like moving forward that the library is really focusing on or excited about bringing to the community? Can you give us any secret plans?
There are a lot of things. Secret plans, it kind of makes me sound like Dr. Evil. But no, we have a lot of things. I would say predominantly a current mission is to make sure that the library is really focusing on the younger generation. Because it is something, as I said, when I was younger, that was where I went. You go to the library, that's where the book that you want to read is. But a library was a very different kind of place because that's where you went to get books, and that was pretty much it. There was story time, but that was pretty much it. And as you point out, here we're kind of a community center as well. But we try to do things that are going to, like, preschoolers come in and there's stuff every single morning for the kids of age not to go to school, right? And then every single afternoon there's after school activities. And we have, our youth services librarian who is phenomenal with kids of all age. And so the idea being, and I hate to use the word indoctrination, but in a sense it kind of is, right? You get used to the idea that this is a place that wants you to be here, right? This is a place where you are accepted for who you are. And if you have things that you want, well, guess what? These are people who want to know what you're interested in.
But I think that's really true. I grew up in a town with a wonderful library, and I think we did, in addition to it just being the place where you went to read or went to like a group reading setting. I think there were some summer camps. I have a lot of memories in my library, growing up. And I do think if you're someone who grows up as a kid going to the library and you like the library, it changed my relationship with the libraries on campus when I was in college and wherever I moved. Getting a library card and going to the library. So again, if people get started young and they know there's this whole world out there that's offered to them through the library, they're going to seek it out. They'll just be more comfortable. It becomes an affinity group for them for their whole lives.
And that's kind of it as well. It's a matter of comfort, I think, which is one of the reasons why I really enjoy having school groups come in, because then the kids come in and they're like, oh, hey, it's not a scary place. And, those people at the desk, they know me and they know what I like to read, which is, it's good to walk into a place and feel like you're wanted.
Absolutely.
Right? Maybe showing a little bit of my age here, but, it's a sort of like you walk in cheers.
Cheers. Right.
Norm.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody who's at the desk, they know everybody who comes in,
They
right?
do.
I mean, and for some of them, they've just got great memories, and I would be willing to bet that Amet knows the reading interests of every person that comes in and talk to her, you know, so.
Well, librarians are incredible, and we're so lucky to have great libraries in Vermont, and particularly the Manchester Community Library. So I'm glad you came up from Florida and that we found you. This is great. Thanks for sharing a little bit with us
I do want to hit on one other thing you're thinking about, right? You know, you asked me, you know, what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
So I do love history. I mentioned that. That's my background. Obviously, we're coming into the 250th anniversary, not only of the country, but also of the Republic of Vermont, right? So I've been focusing heavily for the last couple of months on working out programming that's going to cover the next 2.5 years, celebrating and educating on the history of this area of the world for 250 years ago. So we're going to be looking at things that very much social history, like, you know, what kind of music did people listen to? What kind of food were people eating? You know, what's the history of the American Revolution from the British perspective, right? I mean, like, so that sort of stuff is going to be up and coming.
Oh, that's really exciting.
There's going to be a lot of that.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Excellent. Well, Paige, thanks for joining us and being our guest today.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to switch back to Paige co-hosting with me.
Well, it's great to be here, Caren.
Oh, thank you.
Good to see you this morning.
And so this is the part of the show where we talk a lot about what we've been reading, and we call this Last Now Next, where we talk about the last book we read, what we're reading now, and what we're looking forward to next. I actually just finished a ton of books. I have a lot of last books right now, but they were sort of books that were on my list last month. I had a little bit of a strange month. My mom passed away, and so that kind of throws all of your habits, your reading, everything else into a little bit of a spin. But I do have one book I want to share that I'm super excited about, which is my next book. And so this is a sports biography that will be out on March 4th, and it's called The Last Manager: How Earl Weaver Tricked, Tormented, and Reinvented Baseball. And it is by John W. Miller. And what is so exciting is John has been a journalist and a writer all of his career. This is his first book, his first biography, and he got an amazing review in the New York Times, which just rarely happens for a sports biography, rarely happens for a debut author. So book critic Dwight Garner in the New York Times said, "Most sports books are pop flies into the infield. Miller's is a screaming triple into the left field corner." So
that's amazing.
It's amazing.
That is an incredible review.
So I already have a copy pre-ordered at Northshire. This will be in bookstores everywhere March 4th. But if you love baseball, if you just love sports biography and colorful characters, I guess Earl Weaver really is one for the record books. So I'm super duper excited about The Last Manager by John W. Miller. So that's my next. And I think, and you've brought some great books with you today.
I did bring some. So last month I mentioned that I was going to start reading this book, The Cloisters. So this is my last book. It is a book that a friend of mine asked me to read as part of a book club that she's starting up. It is not typically my style of book. I don't do mystery. That's not really my thing. I do, however, do medieval history, and so this book takes place in the cloisters, and I was like, oh, okay, you know, the cloisters at the Met's probably one of my favorite places to be in this country. Okay. I didn't love it. I mean, again, it's not my genre. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was a little predictable, but you know, I learned a lot of stuff about 16th century tarot cards. Who knew? But you know, I think for somebody who does enjoy mystery, it would probably be an enjoyable read. But it was also a fantastic airplane book.
Okay.
I was on February break, right? So I had a bit of travel time to read. So it was a fantastic airplane book. Nothing too heavy. My now book, however, I'm going to go the exact opposite direction because Alex E. Harrow is somebody who I adore. I have a big soft spot for magical realism, and that is, I think, what she specializes in, that and fractured fairy tales, which I also love. And this book, Starling House, is just so phenomenal, so phenomenal. I love the characters. I'm really character driven when it comes to books that I enjoy. And I love the characters. We were just talking a little while ago about how they're you know, they're not like the pretty people that everybody wants to talk. No, but they're just like, they're gritty and dirty and they have, you know, rough pasts, but they're wonderful human beings that manage to come out of their shell and battle demons from the underworld. I mean,
like literally, it's such a great book.
And to give you a sense of how much I love this book, I don't want to finish it. Right, I've got this much left on it because I'm like, if I finish reading that, then the book is over, and I don't want to finish it. So.
Well, then you have like that book hangover, as we all know, like when you finish a book and you just loved it, and then you're just sort of dragging around and having to start something else.
I don't have to start something new, and I don't want to start something new. So my next book is going in a completely different direction.
Okay.
As I said, I'm working on programming that's going to be 250th anniversary related, and so that this book, The Dan Rebels, is one that has been recommended to me by a number of different friends of mine. It is the American Revolution seen through British eyes. And that's a perspective I think that many of us here on this side of the salt pond don't actually get. I mean, when we study American history, obviously we study it from the American perspective. As a British medieval historian, I'm very interested in the British perspective on that one. So I've also been told that this book, I have not started it yet, but that it actually reads in a very narrative style. So it perhaps maybe reads a little bit like fiction, even though it is well-researched and historically accurate, as I have been told. So I'm looking forward to that one.
I love fiction like that, like the David Grann books. They're nonfiction, but they read in a
like
narrative
Thomas
style.
Costain. Or,
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, I'm really be interested to hear about that one.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
So we wanted to let you all know we have an email box now. You guys can email us at SoVT Book Talk. And if there is a book you'd be interested in us reading and talking about, let us know. If you know a local author in Vermont, you think you'd like to have them on the show. If you are a local author in Vermont, let us know, and we'd love to have you on the show. So I think we're going to put up that email address on the screen in case anybody wants to email us here at SoVT Book Talk.
I would love to have somebody give a recommendation of a book that we should read and talk about. I think
That'd be really
super
fun.
fun.
That'd be really cool. So we are going to dedicate a lot of the show, the rest of the show today, to talking about events that are coming up in the North Shire. March is just going to be jam-packed. And I just want to take a minute to say we are so lucky to live where we do, where we have the North Shire Bookstore, all the events happening there. We have all of the libraries, including the Manchester Community Library, and all the programming that's going on there. And I know we've had a really long winter in Vermont, but I just want to encourage anybody watching the show, get out and go to a literary event in March. It will do you a world of good. We need to get out. We need to see each other. We need to be in community. And if you've never been someone who goes to author events, they are so inspirational. Even if it's not a topic you think you're going to be interested in, trust me, once you hear an author talk passionately about what they've written, you're going to want to read that book. It's going to change the way you read a book when you've heard an author talk about it. And it will actually start to change the way you read every book once you sort of put those pieces together. So I'm just empowering everybody to think about getting out of the house, putting on your boots, braving the ice, and getting out to some events this March, because there is so much going on. So, first up, these are all events that are associated with the upcoming Southern Vermont Writers Conference, which is coming to the Equinox at the end of March and the first week of April. But on Thursday, March 27th, I will be in conversation with author Alyssa Altman discussing her new book, Permission, The New Memoirist and the Courage to Create. And that will be at the Southern Vermont Arts Center in Yester House at 5:30. And again, that's on Thursday, March 27th. And I am so excited to talk with Alyssa Altman about this book, because the book really is, it's almost a memoir about writing memoir, and also really empowering anyone as a writer to feel free to tell their own story. So I found it's just a really compelling narrative, and reading it was so much fun to read it. I'm underlining, I want to ask her about this, and I want her to tell everybody this story. So that's going to be really great. And that's Thursday, March 27th at SVAC. And then through the Southern Vermont Writers Conference, we have several events that are open to the public. So whether you're a writer, thinking about becoming a writer, or you just love learning about the writing process, these events are open to the public. So the first we have is a series of afternoon craft talks, and these will be at the Equinox Resort and Spa in Manchester. And each craft talk includes joining us for a chef-inspired lunch buffet and time to network with the other participants at the conference.
What does a craft talk mean?
So a craft talk is when a an instructor, a writer, an instructor comes and talks about the craft of writing. So that's a really good question. So that means they're really going to be getting into the nitty-gritty about some aspects. And I'll go through the topics they have, and that'll probably make it a little clearer. But there's going to be time, if you join us, to really feel like you're a part of the conference. And as of today, we already have people attending from 12 states, the U.S. and Canada. So this is really exciting that this is happening in Southern Vermont. So all the craft talks will start at 12:30 in the Battenkill room at the Equinox. But on Monday, March 31st, we have Sari Botten writing about, she'll be speaking on A Writer is Born and a Family Trembles, Best Practices Around Writing About Family and Those Close to You.
Ooh.
It can be really interesting. So again, about the craft of writing memoir. Tuesday, April 1st, the incomparable Chris Wells will be talking on doubt, commitment, and endurance. He'll be talking about how to build a writing practice. So whether that's writing in your journal or thinking you're going to write a novel or whatever it is you're thinking about writing, again, these are open to everyone. And then Wednesday, April 2nd, Thomas Pope, who's a local author here, will be giving a first page masterclass, and he'll be talking about the tools of language and story that make your opening page sing. So that'll be very specific and we'll be actually looking at some first pages of maybe a favorite novel that people will be bringing in or work that people in the conference are doing right now. So those will be the 3 craft talks, and each individual talk, it's $65, which includes your lunch and beverage and the craft talk. Or you can purchase all 3 for $175. And this is really a fabulous opportunity for anyone here in our region can kind of make your own 3-day writers conference and build it around those 3 afternoons. And you can get information on all of those at the Green Mountain Academy website, which is greenmtnacademy.org. And then there's more. And then also through the Southern Vermont Writers Conference, we have our featured author event, which is open to the public on Thursday, April 3rd at the Manchester Community Library at 5:30. And we are thrilled to be bringing journalist, essayist, and critic Megan Mayhew Bergman to the Northshire. And she will be discussing In Service of the Story, Researching and Writing, the International Sweethearts of Rhythm.
Ooh.
So it'll be all about her process of how she combines researching and writing. And she's just a phenomenal writer and also up at Middlebury, but lives here locally. So we're thrilled to be bringing her. And the Megan Mayhew Bergman event is free for all students and educators, and tickets for that will be $15. So again, more information at the GMAL website, which is greenmtnacademy.org.
That's a lot.
And I have all the events at Northshire, but I'm going to let you do events at the library first. What is happening at the library?
Oof. Okay, well, we're coming out of hibernation. February is typically our slowest month, so I'm starting to pick up a little bit now. And I'm just going to go through a list of new weekly programs, I guess.
Great.
So intermittently, we have 2 French teachers who come in and run 6-week French conversation groups, right? So Michelle Emery and Lizzie Lindbergh, they come in and they run an after hours, I guess you could call it, evening French conversation group. So they're starting back up again, and so through March and I think up through April 15th. Beginner French conversation is from 5:30 to 6:15, and advanced French conversation is 6:15 to 7 p.m., and that's going to be on Tuesdays, and they're going to meet in the cafe, so, have snacks, maybe, I don't mean to be, wine and cheese, but, I mean, like, you get kind of like that.
Conversation.
Yeah, conversational,
I like
right?
it.
I mean, you got to have some snacks. So that's going to be starting up again soon. Now, every Wednesday afternoon, it's one of our after-school programs, we have the Creativity Cave, and that goes Wednesdays from 3:30 to 5. It's, again, after school, so I sometimes have to turn away adults saying that, no, I know that you really want to do macrame, but this is for kids today. But we have local sculpture artist Lee Williams is going to be spending the month with us.
Great.
Yeah, so he's going to be doing a bunch of different things. Every week is a different project. So he's going to be there 3:30 to 5, Wednesday afternoons for the month of March. Now, we have preschool programs in the morning almost every day during the week, but some parents had reached out to the library and asked if it was possible to have a preschool art class in the afternoons. Because if you're, young enough, and maybe you are going to school sometime in the morning, then you don't get to do those things. So our fabulous youth services librarian, Caren, has started up a preschool Pollock's art group.
Oh, great.
We love alliteration, so Jackson Pollock, preschool Pollock, right. So preschool Pollock's art group, it's gonna be Thursdays from 4 to 5:30. Caren says, stop by MCL after preschool to paint, color, rip, fold, and glue with youth librarian Caren. So families are welcome to mingle and craft and then go home with a unique piece of art.
Very fun.
We also have a series of programs that are called Senior Wednesdays,
Okay.
And that was a program that was created by two local seniors who wanted us to have more dedicated programming for their particular interest and age group. So that's every other Wednesday, and for the month of March, we have two programs set up. One is on the roadmap to climate resilience, buying locally grown food. And at that discussion, we're going to discuss how regenerative and organic food production can restore soil, absorb more water, produce healthy food, and also how important it is to support local Vermont farmers. And then we have another Senior Wednesday, which is Why We Count Birds, Think Global, Act Local,
Okay.
which is about how birds play an important role in the ecosystem and how it is important to count the birds and track their movements during the seasons in order to be able to learn from them, what their haunts are and whether they have sufficient nutrients and all the rest of that. So it tells you a lot about the I guess global landscape by keeping track of what's going on locally. Throughout the month of March, we'll back it up again, on Thursday mornings, we always have a preschool play group on Thursday mornings, but throughout the month of March, we have a speech-language pathologist who is coming in to have different conversations, 3 different days, conversations with parents who may have questions about their children's language development. So Patricia Michael is going to be in to answer questions about early childhood language development. March 13th, the topic is What is Typical Language Development? March 20th is Creating a Language-Rich Environment in Your Daily Life. And the 27th is Technology, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's the stuff that happens regularly. And now we have a couple of special programs that I can't resist talking about.
Okay.
And one in particular is it's a joint effort with the Manchester Historical Society, who I assume is based in the building. Their archives are in our building. And so we are very lucky that they do presentations frequently with us. So on March 11th at 6 p.m., Bill Badger is going to talk about the railroad stations of the Bennington and Rutland Railroad. So local architect Bill Badger, president of the Rutland Railroad Historical Society and board member of the Manchester Historical Society, will present an illustrated program on the stations of the Bennington and Rutland Railroad, later the Rutland Railroad from Rutland to Bennington. So that should be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And then here's one that I literally have been waiting months to do. I don't know if you are aware of the fact that we have a Van Gogh expert who lives here in Manchester, but Carol Barry has written 3 books about Vincent van Gogh, and she is coming into the library with a talk that she has written specifically about Van Gogh and his books, the books that he read that inspired him. So Vincent van Gogh and the books he read is going to be on Thursday, March 13th. She's going to start talking at around 5:30. And her description is, Vincent van Gogh has been described as many different things: an artist, an eccentric, tortured soul, but a book lover. That's a side that many consider to be one of his greatest, that's a side of what many consider to be one of the greatest painters of all time that few know about. So Van Gogh read about 450 books over the course of his life, many of which were contemporary novels from the likes of Charles Dickens and Victor Hugo. He was a sensitive man, and he was deeply affected by what he read. So Carol Barry will use the literature that Van Gogh read as a window into his remarkable life and showing pieces of art he created when he was reading certain books.
Sounds amazing.
Oh, it's going to be incredible,
That
right?
sounds
I mean,
great.
like a pairing between history, literature, and art,
And
all
art
wrapped up
history
in
all
one,
together.
right? Exactly.
Fantastic.
So, I'm super excited about that. Literally have been waiting months for this one to take place.
Awesome. Oh, that is great.
And then the last thing I want to say is that we have a virtual town hall.
Okay.
And the virtual town hall is going to be with Vermont statewide leaders. This is a partnership with GNAT-TV. That's on Monday, March 17th.
Okay.
It is at 5:30 p.m. And Attorney General Clark and Treasurer Mike Pichek, they're going to be joining the Manchester community for a virtual town hall to discuss their office's work in the first few months of the new federal administration. And after a brief presentation of what they've been doing, they're going to turn to community questions.
Great.
And the discussion is hosted by Representative Kathleen James and Rob Hunter.
Fabulous.
GNAT-TV has on their website a link that you can use in order to be able to submit questions if you want to be able to shape the conversation.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Paige. That's amazing. Woo. All right. And now I have some wonderful events from our friends at Northshire Bookstore that are coming up in March. So story time with their booksellers will be in both their stores in Manchester and Saratoga Springs on Fridays. So that's March 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th at 10:30 a.m. So another opportunity to get out, be in the bookstore, be around books with young ones. And on Saturday, March 1st, from 1 to 3 p.m., they are doing a local author spotlight. 2 Vermont authors are going to be in the store at Northshire to sign copies of their latest books. And as a Vermont author, I can say it means so much to you when people show up and ask about your book and maybe buy a copy and get it signed. So Mimi St. Pez, who's written Usurpation, will be there, and Amy Babaraz, I hope I said that right, has just written Before We Rise and After the Last Fall. So come on out and support those local Vermont authors at Northshire this Saturday, March 1st from 1 to 3. Friday, March 7th at 6 p.m., Alexander, I won't say this one right, Milhalovic. I practice these at home, but then I get here and I can't do it. And Ilbero Vanguard, Populist Elitism in the United States and Russia. So this is going to be a fascinating discussion. The author is a visiting professor at Bennington College, and is going to discuss his latest book, which considers movements in the 2 erstwhile enemy nations and their parallel approaches to gender, race, and performative identity. So that's going to be fascinating, Friday, March 7th. On Friday, March 14th at 6 p.m., we have Roxana Robinson, who wrote Leaving. And this was a book that we started talking about, I think, during Booktopia, even last year. And Nicole Ihaz is going to be interviewing her. Tickets are required for this one. And as Nicole said, this book will reach inside your chest, wrap itself around your heart, and squeeze. It's really it's a spectacular book. And that's on the 14th. Saturday, March 15th at 6 p.m., Nathan Ian Miller, who's written Red Dog Farm, will be talking with Bethany Marsfelder. And he wrote a customer favorite. He wrote the Memoirs of Stockholm Sven, but he's going to be discussing his newest novel, which is an atmospheric story about family, friends, and falling in love. So he'll be in conversation with Bethany at the Northshire Bookstore on Saturday the 15th. And on Friday, March 21st at 6 p.m., Chris Lewitt, who has just written The Secrets of Spanish Tennis 2.0. Again, a little bit more sports things happening. He's a best-selling author, educator, and top junior tennis development coach. And he's going to be in the Manchester store talking about the new edition of his book, which is a culmination of 20 years of study on the Spanish way of training. So he will demystify what makes Spanish tennis so unique and successful. So that's really fun if you have a tennis player. And then really looking forward to Saturday, March 29th at 6 p.m., David Toomey will be discussing The Kingdom of Play, and that's in partnership with the Red Fox Community School. So acclaimed science writer David Toomey will take us on a fast-paced and entertaining tour of playful animals and the scientists who study them. A lively, informative, and scientifically entertaining animal behavior study, says Kirkus Reviews. Kingdom of Play is an illuminating look at a little-known aspect of the animal kingdom, which is play. And this event in the Manchester store is presented in partnership with the Red Fox Community School and will feature a musical intro by Maxine Linehan. So that's going to be a great night. And all the information on Northshire events is available at northshire.com. So that is a lot. There's a lot going on, and I hope you've heard something today that interests you and that you will get out and be part of this incredible literary community where we live in the Northshire. I'm Caren Simpson McVicker, and until next time, happy reading.